So you've decided to turn to crime, to firearms, to drugs and contraband. Well, you're in luck, because in this video we're going to be going over all the guns and contraband, what you can do with it, what they all do, and how you can acquire them. But before we talk about guns, it's important that I show you how to craft them and just tell you the basics of contraband in general, because most guns are considered contraband. So anything that is considered contraband will have this symbol on it. This little exclamation point. As you can see, it says under gun parts, you have this yellow exclamation point. Anytime something has that symbol, it is considered contraband. And anything that's contraband is illegal on the surface. So if a Cortex personnel searches you and you have this, it'll put a limit order on you, regardless of what fate you are, even if you're a Cortex personnel. So keep that in mind. And if you don't already know, whenever you have a limit order on you, that means you can be killed by basically anybody and they will not receive any type of punishment for it. It's basically a free pass to eliminate you. Now that you know the basics of contraband and how it works in the world, I'm going to show you how to craft an item. And this is how you're going to be crafting almost every gun. You'll just come up to a workbench like this. This is the workbench in the Underground Bazaar. It's one of the most common benches people will use to craft firearms, but there are a couple other benches in the Underground that you can use. Now, if you found an item called a gunsmithing kit, you can craft firearms at benches just by dropping it on top, and it'll turn it into a weapons workbench. This allows some people to craft guns on the surface, and there's also some workbenches underground that you can use this on to craft guns at too if you want to do it somewhere separate from here. Maybe this area is crowded, so you want to do it somewhere else. That'll allow you to do that. It's also a good item for trading, so maybe think about that. So here's how you would actually craft a gun. You would come up to this. You would just check what materials it needs. So I, for example, am going to be crafting the Tantalizer. So it says it needs 2 old gun parts, 1 machine trinket, 2 axles, 1 wood. As you can see, I have all the materials. So what I would need to do is just drop them on the table. Gun parts, 2 pieces of wood, 2 axles. Just gotta be careful because sometimes stuff can fall on the ground off the table, so you just gotta watch it. And the machine trinket. So I should have everything. There you go. Now you have a firearm created. So whenever a firearm is very first made, it actually comes with 1 full magazine. But you'll have to craft ammo. And to do that, you just have to do the same thing. You have to see which firearm needs which ammo. Most of the time, the firearm and the ammo that is required for it are right next to each other. But if you don't know which one goes to which, there'll be a link down in the description that'll lead to the wiki page for this. And there's a guide on that that can show you which ammos go for which. The Tantalizer takes 7.62. And while this is how you craft firearms, now we're just going to go back and I'm going to demonstrate all of them for you guys and give you the stats for all of them. And now as I go through each of the firearms in the game, I'm going to have a little thing pop up on the side that gives you all of its stats on what it takes to kill specific fates. So the first one we're going to be talking about is the Kidney Splitter, which is a fully automatic suppressed AR. It has kind of a small magazine, but it's pretty effective at close to mid-range. Now, if you try to shoot it at something far range, like that little poster over there, you can see it still has kind of a little bullet spread. But you can still probably hit your target a few times at least, but the accuracy does drop pretty significantly from far range. Alright, let's go on to the next. So the next one we're going to be covering is the AG-42B. It's a marksman rifle that's definitely best at far to mid-range. I personally think it's best at mid-range, because after you start aiming a little far, that's whenever the bullet can be a little inconsistent as to where it lands in terms of the crosshair. So like watch. For example, I would consider this poster far range. You can see it's not right where I want it to go. Here, we'll creep up to about what I would consider mid-range now. I'd consider this probably like right here, mid-range. As you can see, it's way more consistent. But occasionally you will still have bullets go aside like that. So now we're going to be covering everybody's favorite gun in the game, the Lung Puncher. And it's mostly regarded as the most powerful gun in the game because, well, it's a high-power, fully automatic shotgun. And the fact being that it's a shotgun, I'm already imagining you know where it's most effective, up close. Absolutely decimates people up close, and you can actually tag people relatively well from mid-range too. I would consider probably about this far mid-range. Alright, we're just going to go straight on to the next. So the next gun we're going to be talking about is my personal favorite gun in terms of looks, the Tantalizer. I like how it has a little cult symbol on it, and I just like the aesthetics of it in general. I personally think this gun is best at close to mid-range. It's not as good at close range as the Lung Puncher, obviously, but it's not as good at mid-range as the AG-42B. So it's kind of like in between the two, and it's fully automatic, so there's a little bit of a sweet spot. So that's close range. And let's drop back to mid-range. It's got a little more recoil than the other ones, but it's maintainable. And now let's just do far range just for shits and gigs. So it's half decent at far range, but yeah. Now for the Limitator Special, the Chroma. A high-power, fully automatic LMG. Best at mid to close range, and it absolutely destroys people at close range. Has a very high fire rate, does a lot of damage. Overall, in my opinion, it's one of the best guns in the game alongside the Lung Puncher. And the Cortex are lucky that the cult guys cannot use this gun because holy crap, they would be screwed. So you can see after you start to get around the mid-range that it becomes very inconsistent in terms of where your bullets are landing. So we'll go far range and you'll see just how quite ridiculous this gun can get in terms of bullet spread. Look at that, like half the magazine didn't even go near that guy. So I'd recommend being mid-range or closer when trying to fire at somebody with this gun. Alright, the next firearm is the Frommer. It's a pistol that shoots 9mm. It's not very good, but it can still get the job done if you're taking down some guys that are not very armored, like other proles, maybe a dealer, or maybe there's a banker dispute that takes place. It's going to be best at mid-range because the accuracy does fall off pretty heavily the further you get. Also has a very small magazine. Yep, there's the Frommer. In my opinion, it's honestly one of the worst guns in the game, but it's still a lot of fun to use. Here is the MP9 Evil. Fully automatic SMG. Good at close range, has a decent sized magazine. Let's go to mid-range. As you can see, with this, the bullet spread kind of gets pretty wild from far range too. That was just mid-range and the bullet spread got pretty good. But now let's see here. So while yes, you can hit somebody decently at mid-range and not very well at far range, you can maybe tag them once or twice, causing them to bleed, but I would mostly try to focus using the MP9 Evil up close. And now we have another gun that looks really badass in my opinion. That is the Director's Death. This one not only looks cool, it has a freaking cool-ass name. And it honestly feels good to use, even though it's not that good of a gun. Whenever you pull it out, it definitely has aura. Look at this thing. It has the cult symbols on it, as the sawed-off shotgun front, and it just looks menacing. It's always hilarious to me whenever I'm like, I have one of these in my back pocket, and some pearl's talking shit to me, and I just whip this thing out and he shuts up. That thing's always funny. But then obviously I gotta leave because he's gonna snitch on me, right? Okay, another obvious thing. This is a shotgun, so it's going to be best at close range. It's double barrel, so you're going to have to reload it after 2 shots. And as you would imagine with the sawed-off shotgun, the bullet spread would get pretty wild the further you got. Look at that. You had some shots land up here. Now let's do some far range. Look at that. Absolutely ridiculous. So this thing, I would basically plan on barrel stuffing people with it if you're going to shoot them. So maybe only use this as like an assassination type weapon. Got somebody kind of not paying attention, just whip it out and pop them twice and run away. And now we have the Cortex pistol, which actually recently got a buff. To me, personally, it looks very reminiscent of a Ruger in real life, although that's not what it's really called. We're going to reload it. As you can see, it has pretty good accuracy at close range. Let's drop back to mid-range. Still, decent accuracy at mid-range, I would even say. Now let's go for some far range. So the bullet spread does get kind of bad, but it's not ridiculous. But I would definitely not rely on it at far range. Alright, and now let's talk about another gun that has a lot of aura, the RDZ. It's a revolver, has the cult symbol on the side. Pretty badass. Decent fire rate and accuracy at close range. Let's drop back to mid. Decent accuracy at mid-range. Let's try far. So this pistol is definitely better than the former. Look at that. Let's try one more. One more mag. I guess for this it wouldn't be a mag, but... So you can see it's pretty damn consistent at far range too, so you could potentially snipe somebody with this thing. That'd be pretty hilarious, honestly. Alright, now let's talk about the next gun, which seems to be the controller's favorite weapon nowadays, is the Conciliator. It's a fully automatic SMG, gonna be best at close range and half decent at mid-range. Very high fire rate, very high damage output. I can see why they like this gun so much, holy shit. Now let's drop back to mid-range. Still half decent accuracy. Now let's go for some far range. Not terrible, but it has so much bullet output you might actually get some hits. And now let's see if we just burst fire it. It honestly doesn't change too much. Just makes the recoil more maintainable. Alright, now let's go to the next one. So the next one we have is very similar to the Kidney Splinter, but it's called the Brain Scorcher, and it's a Cortex exclusive because it has a flamethrower. You'll see Sanitars with this weapon. It's a suppressed fully automatic AR. Good at close range and half decent at mid-range, but it kind of drops off at far range, similar to the Kidney Splinter. Splitter. I say Splinter for some reason on accident. Go. Have decent range. The biggest downfall of this weapon and the Kidney Splitter, in my opinion, is how small their magazine is. You basically are guaranteed to have to use 2 mags to kill somebody from mid to far range. Unless you happen to get lucky and they're just holding still and you can just hit them with every bullet. Now, one other thing that makes this gun really cool is it is a freaking flamethrower. Just press X and you'll see a little spark come out. And then... you can burn a mofo. So yeah, that shit's pretty cool. Imagine you're just pushing somebody and scare them back with this, and then as they run, swap and just light them up. And now for the Cortex weapon that has the most aura, in my opinion, the Arbiter. It's got the Cortex symbol on the side. It's a semi-automatic shotgun. And it's just overall fucking badass in my opinion. There's close range. Let's drop back to mid-range. Alright. Now for our final gun we're going to be talking about in this video, the Pity, which is an SMG sported mostly by scumbags because it's easy to make. However, it's not really that best. The Tantalizer definitely outperforms it, but yeah, we're still going to showcase it. Close range. Pretty good. And you can see the bullet spread gets kind of wild at far range. So yeah, okay, so this is all the guns. Let's So there you go. Now you know all the stats for the guns. You know what they all fire like. You know what the bullet spread looks like at close to mid to far range. So hopefully that helps you in deciding which gun you want to craft. So now we're going to move on to contraband that are not firearms, starting with bombs. So now it's time for the fun stuff, some explosives, and you yourself might have been killed in a terrorist attack by one of these explosives. We have ourselves our handy dandy IED. Let's bring it over in the light so you guys can actually see it. So you can see it looks like 4 little sticks of C4, some type of explosive tied together. And you can see where it says arm and disarm. This will start the 15-second timer, and then you can obviously disarm it if you want. Now, it has a 15-second timer, and let me show you the blast radius. Make sure you're kind of far back, because these things do actually have a pretty big blast radius. There you go. Look how big that was. It was all the way over here, and it blew up and destroyed this bomb right here. And so basically anybody in that circle would probably be dead, and if they were on the outer edge of that circle, they would be very severely injured and probably bleeding. So what are these things mainly used for? They're used for destroying these besides just killing people. This is a neurostabilizer. This is a neurostabilizer. It kind of filters out the air. So the cult would want to destroy these. That way they don't have to worry about it filtering the air, because they're trying to increase the rot of the city. So all you'd have to do with these is drop a IED next to it, arm it, and then you're going to have to protect this IED, because sometimes people will be heroes and run up and disarm it and try to steal your IED. So you got to make sure you actually watch it from a distance, make sure no proles steal it or nobody else does. Just got to wait. Whoa, look at that. I was all the way over here and it damaged me that much. So just keep in mind the blast radius on these things are far bigger than you would expect. I have a feeling the neurostabilizer blowing up along with it just increased it, but yeah. Be careful with the distance. Now let's move on to the next bomb, which has an even bigger blast radius. Now the rot bomb requires you to steal a warhead from the wartime factory. So you're going to have to be brave, run in there and steal one of those warheads, or maybe talk to a prole and have them bring it down to you into the underground. But this guy has an even bigger blast radius, so all you got to do is arm it. It'll detonate in 60 seconds. It has a longer time too, though, so we're just going to have to wait, and then I'll show you guys the blast radius. There it is, much bigger blast radius. And now similarly to the IED, these can also be used to blow up neurostabilizers. Now we're going to talk about an item that the Cortex absolutely loves to get their hands on. Most commonly you'll find dealers and bankers with them though, because they like to make deals with the guys in the underground. And that is a hijacker. You might have heard people talk about these, and what they do is allow you to get into the underground without having to be a member of the cult. Can be used to access the underground. So what you do is you'll just put it in your inventory, and then what it'll allow you to do is just freely open and close this door. So you can jump inside, and you'll get a limit order if you don't already have one, and then you're free to come in here. And then you can also use it to leave whenever you want to. Now you should also know, as of patch 14, scumbags and zealots are the only ones that can craft hijackers. So they've become even harder to attain. So if you do manage to find one, you could potentially sell it for a very high price, or just keep it yourself because it's a very valuable item. So you can see here, it says hijacker, 2 stolen circuitry, 2 odd glue. Fun fact, you can also craft a guitar and skin tape as the zealot and scumbag only. If you do manage to get your hands on a hijacker, sometimes the Cortex guys will buy them for a very high dollar. So if you're in the cult, maybe think about that if you see a dealer or a banker walking around asking for a hijacker. Maybe question them on their motives on why they want it. And now as for the rest of the contraband items, basically all of them are now consumables that give you some type of powerful buff that allow you to basically be a moving tank, which is awesome in my opinion. The first one we're going to talk about is a very expensive one, but a very effective one, Kevlar. For Kevlar, it says you have to eat it, and it will give you... I am significantly more resistant to damage. And now this effect lasts over an hour, unless you die, obviously. So Kevlar is very effective because it lasts so long, and it gives you significant damage reduction. Pretty damn good item. The only way to even acquire Kevlar is through the dealer net, so you're going to have to talk to either a banker or a dealer to get it. And the price for this thing ranges. I've seen it all the way as low as 75 cents, but I've also seen it all the way above like 200 cents, so the price varies pretty heavily here. The next one is Surströmming. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, so excuse me. Stinks more than the worst batch of Jankum. No wonder it's illegal. So holy shit, it stinks more than Jankum. So if you consume this stuff, which it actually is food, so this stuff restores 20 nourishment, 10 thirst, 15 sanity, and has a 25% chance of giving you parasites that'll last about 1 minute. And the only way you can obtain this stuff, besides getting it from somebody else, is by cooking it yourself. You'll need a fish and a jar. Fish can be acquired by the water down by the docks near Ration Factory. And a jar is crafted at a workbench by putting 2 plastic on the workbench and then crafting it. So here we have a rot shroom. In order to make a rot shroom, you need a pot, soil, and a cancer pod. You drop them all on top of each other and keep feeding it blood, and over time, it'll create a rot shroom. Now, if you consume it, that's the good shit. What does it do for you? You feel so good that your sanity won't deteriorate. So if you kill people or if you witness people die in front of you, your guy doesn't care. He's just straight vibing. But do keep in mind that the rot shroom can cause addiction. Now, there's something else you should know about the rot shroom. It is used to create 2 other things. Benadryl and Doozer Booze. And now I'm going to show you what both of these do. So here's Doozer Booze. As you can see, it lights you on fire, but it lets you run really fast. So it's kind of funny to do. Just keep in mind that it can cause addiction. But look how fast I run. Oh my god, I'm freaking Sonic the Hedgehog out here. It says I can run much faster than others. I am burning alive. So this is how Doozer Booze is made. You have to come to the distillery, and you have to make sure you have the rot shrooms. All you'll do is drop it into the back here, and then proceed to finish it how you would any other drink. You can see there's 8 ready, so you get 4 per rot shroom. So just a little quick rehash. You got to heat this up past 100, toggle the power off so it doesn't explode, because if it hits 150, you'll lose everything in it. And then as you see, they are processing. Once they start processing, they'll convert to ready. Once they're ready, you can bottle them and then do whatever you want with them. If you want a complete guide on the distillery, I'll have a tag pop up in the top right corner. Now for Benadryl. You feel so good that your sanity won't deteriorate, and I'm slightly resistant to damage. 2 little status effects just like that, and I do believe this one can also cause addiction. Basically, all the drugs in this game can cause addiction, so just beware, they all have a negative side effect. So to make Benadryl, you're going to need a farm toolkit. You'll drop it on the top of the workbench. Then you'll look up here at the top. Benadryl, it requires 1 rot shroom, 1 leech. You'll then drop these both on top of the table. The rot shroom can be acquired how we discussed earlier. You have to grow it. And the leech can be acquired by getting them out of the water by the docks near the Ration Factory. Similarly to how you harvest the fish, you can find leeches doing the same method. Now we're going to do methadone, a powerful drug with consequences. And there we go. What does this one do for us? Significant damage resistance. I run slightly faster than others. And I'm freaking crazy. And this one also does cause addiction at the end of it. But you'll see that every once in a while, my guy will talk about something about having voices in his head. And that's what it'll do if you're experiencing insanity. It'll say, I hear whispers in my head. Now, for methadone, you're going to need 2 A4 premiums, which are only available as of right now in vending machines. Look for A4 premium and purchase 2 of them. Both on the table, and bam, there you go. There's your methadone. Okay, now we're going to be taking the Jankum. What does Jankum do? Slight resistance to damage. I can run for as long as I want. So in other words, you don't run out of stamina. I run slightly faster, and you're also insane. And on top of these different status effects, this also does cause addiction. So Jankum is made by first acquiring a jar. You're going to need 2 plastic for that. You can find plastic from rummaging into trash cans, and a bunch of other things you can just search. Mostly found only on the surface though. And then you would find where it says jar, requires 2 plastic. You craft it, take your handy dandy jar, and find a toilet. One of the best toilets to go to is the one here in the nightclub. Because it's free, the only thing you have to do is watch out for police patrolling it. So all you gotta do is just drop your jar inside one of these toilets. You'll hear that pleasant sound, and then your jankum is good to go. You just have to wait for it to ferment, which takes a little bit, but you can see the percentage climb. Once it's at 100%, then you can huff it and get the buffs. Now for the next piece of contraband, it's actually kind of a unique one, because only Cortex personnel can consume it, and that is combat juice. Now you see, if I'm not Cortex personnel, it just says grab or keep. But now let me change into a Cortex personnel, and I'll show you what it says. Now you can see I'm the big boy limitator, and now if I look at the combat juice, look what it says. Administer dose or confiscate. So we're just going to click administrate. And what does it do for us? It gives us some of the best buffs in the game, honestly. Gives us immune to bleeding. A slight resistance to damage. I can run for as long as I want. And I run slightly faster. Now, in order to be able to even use this or have access to it as a Cortex personnel, you have to go to the Nexus, which is up here in this tower. This blue area you see commonly, with the massive Cortex symbol. And you have to be rank 4 or higher in your class. Now you can see here mine says L6. This is because I am in a test build of the game, so my rank will not match what's required. I believe it has to say L4 as the limitator, C4 as the controller, and then as the sanitar it'll say like S4 in order to have access to it. So you can see here, I do not have access to it because I'm not rank. And as you go up the ranks, you'll also unlock these different weapons too. So that's how you get the combat juice. The ranks go in a descending order. So the higher the number is actually the lower the rank somebody is. And the lower the number, the higher the rank they are. All right, and the next item is going to be skin tape. And you're only really going to want to use this item if you're one of the cult fates. And that's because if you take it and you're not, you will take negative 10 sanity, which sucks because you'll become more insane and you'll potentially become more colorblind. Now, what does this stuff do? It heals you a tiny bit, only like 10 health. But what it's mainly used for is kind of like a bandage effect. You use it, and you can see here, I'm immune to bleeding. Now this buff right here is very short-lived, so I would only use this thing if you're actually actively bleeding, kind of like how you do for bandages. So if you don't have bandages, you got one here. Something else that's unique about skin tape is only the zealot and the scumbag can craft it. And what's needed to craft it is 1 suspicious meat. So the next one we're going to talk about is the organ, which is kind of the step up from the skin tape. What this one will do is it'll replenish 25 hunger, 10 thirst, and 10 health. But if you eat this one as a non-cult fate, it has an even worse negative side effect. It takes 50 sanity away from you, so you're basically going to be insane if you eat this as a non-scum fate, so I highly don't advise it personally. But because I'm a zealot, I don't have to worry about it. These organs can only be found in stashes in the underground, so you can't even find them on the surface. The next item that's contraband is the gunsmithing tools. So you have to use a workbench, as it says. So what you'll do is if you have an apartment like this, if you're not in the underground and you want to craft firearms, you're going to have to find access to a workbench up here. So I have an apartment that has a workbench in it. There's also a workbench in Metalworks that you can use. However, it is highly populated, so it's kind of sketchy to use it. So try to find yourself a private workbench if you want to craft guns on the surface. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to craft them underground. Now, how do you use it? You just simply drop it on top. And as you can see, all the firearm tools will spawn on the top. You'll just click craft, and then you can see everything you need here is listed out and what you need to craft it. We have this final food item. Now, if somebody eats this that is not a scum fate, it'll cost you 40 sanity. So I don't advise it unless you're absolutely starving to death. But if you're a scum fate, you obviously will not have this effect, and it'll give you 20 health. And nourish you 25 hunger and 20 thirst. So it's pretty good if you're on the scum fate side, but I would stay away from it if you're not, unless you're absolutely desperate. you have to use a kitchen to make this item. Now here's one of the hardest items in the entire game to acquire, the festering serum. This item can only be made by the malpractitioner and can only be used by one fate. And that fate is the slave. Now I'm not going to talk too much about this besides tell you what's needed to craft it, because I have a whole video based around it just about. I'll put a tab to that in the top right corner. But to make this thing, you're going to need 3 rot shrooms, 3 suspicious meat, 2 organs, 2 machine trinkets, and 1 stolen circuitry. So it requires a lot to make it. It's a high value item, and it does something pretty damn cool. It can turn a slave into a vomit coffin. So now we're going to talk about one of the most misunderstood pieces of contraband in the entire game, and that is none other than skull sterling. So there are a couple things that can manipulate the price of skull sterling. It is not random. However, there is a randomizing system built within what determines the price of it. There are mainly 2 factors that determine what the price of skull sterling will be that you actually have control over. One of them being the percentage of rot that the server is under, and the other one is the amount of contraband that has been sold to the vent. And the value of it is calculated by this formula. You have the rot percent, which ranges from 0.1 to 1. In other words, from 10% to 100%, times 1 plus bought bucks, which is the amount of skull sterling you buy from the vent, minus the amount of sold contraband to the vent, times 0.05 plus a random value between negative 0.25 and 0.25. That's why as you drop items of contraband in here, the price of this will fluctuate because of that random value between negative 0.25 and 0.25. So here I'll demonstrate what the roll system kind of looks like. And I'll show you what the prices can look like at a high rot value versus a low rot value. So right now the rot value is as low as it can possibly be at 0.1, which is 10%. I'll drop some old ammo in there. Now you don't have to drop old ammo in there. I just have a bunch of old ammo because it's easy to attain. And just for this example, as long as it's contraband, this will work. So I drop one in there, you can see the price just changed. Same price, coincidentally. And now the price went up, so it's on the higher side of that randomizer. So it's on the positive 0.25 end. It's on the higher end again, lower end this time. So you can see how this like random system kind of goes. And every time I put a piece of contraband in there, it's adding to the amount that is being subtracted by the amount of bucks that I've purchased. Now I'm going to crank the rot value up to about 80%, and I'll show you how the randomizer changes the amount. The rot value is now at 80%, and watch this. Throw something in there. Look at the price now, 59%. 89. 91. 57. So you can see the higher the rot value, the better numbers you're going to get, basically. So one of the best times probably to sell skull sterling back to the vent is during a limitation order. That would be a good signal for you to run to a vent and ditch off some of your skull sterling. So how would you optimize the amount of money you could get from this? 1, have the rot value as high as possible. 2, put as little contraband into the vents as you can, but buy as much skull sterling from them as you can. You can buy skull sterling from a vent once every 10 minutes. 3, hope you get on the positive end of that random value. But if you don't, it's probably not that big of a deal if you just throw one piece of contraband in there to hopefully re-roll it to be on the higher end. It's really your call at that point. If you guys have been watching my videos for a while, you know I like to always leave a little tidbit at the end of my video as a way to thank you for staying all the way to the end. And for this time around, I just kind of want to give you guys a demonstration. Kind of food for thought, maybe some ideas on ways to get an edge on the people above ground. In particular, the dudes with the heavy armor. Just food for thought. I hope you guys found this video extremely helpful. This video took me quite a while to make, so I would
really appreciate a like. And if you could leave some comment down below, it doesn't even have to be something coherent. Honestly, it'd be funny if it kind of wasn't. It would help me out a lot in the YouTube algorithm. I appreciate you guys watching this video. And of course, I will catch you guys in Aneurysm 4. Peace! That's right. Steelers. No, follow me, guys. Follow me. We're going to the next neurostabilizer.